At first glance, the Infinix GT20 Pro isn't very exciting when you're paying similar price to the Poco X6 Pro or the Poco F6 that I just reviewed here, and you get an older chip and slower charging instead. But I've been gaming on this phone for 1 full month and I can definitely say this is the better phone for gaming. And we're gonna talk about all the reasons why, so buckle up and let's get started. Selamat pagi, good morning everyone, Kenneth here and welcome to my gaming review of the Infinix GT20 Pro. Super excited to finally check out a gaming phone from a different brand. Actually, what other brands do you want me to review next? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, you're getting my own honest opinion here, and I would really appreciate if you could buy things from the affiliate link below, as I may get a small commission at no extra cost to you. Thank you so much, and let's get started right away with the testing procedure first. So I did separate sessions for each game, starting from a full 100% charge. I also made sure that they're starting off cool below 36 degrees Celsius with an ambient of 25 degrees here. Then after playing around 10 to 15 minutes, we'll check the amount of battery use and how much the temperature rises, as well as analyze the performance throughout the game. Of course, these results are similar to what I've got over the month of using this phone, so hopefully you'll get a good idea of what to expect from the GT20 Pro. As for the frame rate measurement, unfortunately Infinix does not have an FPS meter built in, so I'll be using this controller to show you the FPS through the gaming plugin to the best of my ability. Some games support it, some games, it just simply touches. And huge thanks to FlyDigi Indonesia for sending this super awesome Apex 4 controller. It supports any and all platforms. It's got force feedback triggers and adjustable resistance on the joysticks. It's got an LCD right here in the middle for you to assign quick triggers on the back here. It's basically a crazy piece of tech that looks and feels awesome. I'll link it down in the description and let me know what do you think if we cover more gaming peripherals in the future. Okay, starting off with the first game. I'll start with a MOBA as usual, but change the game to Honor of Kings now. I played the Chinese version when I was studying in China, but now they have launched globally. Actually, not only it's exciting to play something new, but one of the main reasons I switch over is because this game is more resource intensive. Same reason why I dropped Wild Rift a long time ago, because most phones could run it at max setting, maxed FPS, so Hawk is the heaviest MOBA game so far. But can I call it Hawk? But yeah, we started off with a 100% charge at 31 degrees Celsius. As a note, anything below 36 is considered cool, and we're running the game at 120 FPS or max frame rate with ultra resolution, and all the other settings turned on like anti-aliasing, water reflection as well. Just for the graphics quality, at this maxed out frame rate, it's locked at number 4. If I max it out, the FPS will be locked at 90 FPS. Both are equally good, but I want to show you how it performs in 120 FPS here. And I know you'll probably think playing mobile with a controller is crazy. I just realized that FlyDigi app has a setting to assign a skill button to also aim with either left or right joystick. And with the 4 extra buttons on the back here, it's actually a pretty fun time playing it. But let's cut through the chase and skip forward for the first 10 minutes, which is where you're still farming. The game runs at the mostly smooth 120 FPS with occasional drops to the 116, 118, but that's such a tiny change that you don't feel at all during gameplay. Even in bigger team fights earlier in the game, the phone only goes down to 114 and quickly goes back up, so that's not a problem at all. But then things get more interesting in the second half as bigger and bigger wars happen more frequently. Watch me being butchered by many skills going on display here, and the FPS drop to 111, and we see this kind of frame rate drop a lot in later fights too. The lowest drop so far happened during the fight in the river, possibly because the water reflection is taken into account here, but the game did go down to 103 to 107 FPS for a good few seconds before finally going back up, and during the final push we see a similar drop, although not as severe. Finally, 20 minutes into the game and we are at 38 degrees top and 33 degrees bottom. The inside is 39 degrees and we used up 7% battery, which calculated will be 21% per hour of hot. Okay, hit like if you found this video helpful, and let's move on to the next game now, as we're gonna start something much heavier, which is Genshin Impact. Now here the game still doesn't support controller, so I still have to simulate touch, and it doesn't have an FPS meter, so I will have to use the gaming plugin. Unfortunately, I cannot keep it at all times, so I'll show you the FPS as much as I can as we go. First of all, we're gonna do the daily quests, and around 6 minutes in, we're already at 40 degrees top and 33 degrees bottom. Now we know that we're pushing the phone hard, and honestly, the FPS meter fluctuates every time I open it, so I'm not super sure, but the game felt quite smooth. Let's say around 50 FPS is probably a good estimate. 10 minutes into the game and we are still at 40 degrees top and 34 degrees bottom, so it doesn't really hit up too much. And you know what? Let's jump on this dreaded mushroom as a way to show you the FPS with a moving scene. And as usual, when I pull out the plugin, it's closer to 30 FPS, but then jumps back up to above 50. So I think that's, you know, the real FPS that we're getting right there. But then farming materials in a domain is less taxing, much closer to the 60 FPS, and we finished the 16 minutes gaming session with 40 degrees top and 36 degrees bottom. We're starting to get hot there. Honestly speaking, this is still great because we see the cooling system work very well, keeping the top at 40 degrees at all times while spreading the heat to the bottom of the phone. At the end, we used up 8% battery and we are at 44 degrees inside the phone. And if calculated, an hour of Genshin would use around 32% battery, which is quite a lot to be honest. But we'll see how the other games fare first. Call of Duty Warzone. Finally, something that has native controller support, which plays great. And in this game, I'm testing two different kinds of settings. First is the smoother gameplay preset, which prioritizes FPS. And true to the promise, actually the game runs very close to 60 FPS until very late in the game, where we see it go below 50, sometimes 44 FPS. But by the end of 10 minutes mark, we're right below 37 degrees top and 33 degrees Celsius bottom. But let's start another deathmatch game here and actually max out all the settings, which tops at low for graphics quality but high for FPS and resolution. And the difference is pretty clear here. Throughout the game, you can definitely see the game dropping constantly below 45 FPS, sometimes, although rarely, go down to the low 30s. And especially the case when you got hit and about to die, you got that extra vignetting effect. This would drop the FPS more, but on solo 1v1 fights, that's usually above 50 FPS, no problem. So we ended the game at around 18 minutes and we are at 37 degrees Celsius top and 33 degrees bottom. We used up 6% battery, or about 20% per hour of gaming. And honestly, this is very good and stable results, but a little sad to see because maybe we still have some little headroom to at least play at medium graphics quality. And to give you some more idea on what will happen if you push the phone to its limit again, I've prepared Wuthering Waves for you as well. This game is notorious for running poorly in phones. No matter if you drop down the graphics settings, you'll never get better frame rate, so maybe it's a problem of optimization. Let's see, I maxed out the game at advanced 60 FPS here, and sure, it doesn't perform anywhere near 60 FPS, but during fights and world farming, you can see the FPS fluctuates between 30 and 40, which is pretty crazy to see since the Galaxy S24 Ultra, that's like 4 times more expensive, also gets this kind of performance. Checking out the few moments that I could bring out the gaming plugin here, you can see that the highest FPS we got is actually 49. We never see the game reach 50 FPS, but that's alright considering the price of the phone. The game runs smooth enough in my experience, and of course, it would be best if you put the frame rate at 30, but 45 will work pretty well too if you want the extra smoothness during exploration. Now, unlike Genshin that improves FPS when you fight inside domains, we are seeing similar performance with either fighting the Dragon Jue here, that looks incredibly fantastic by the way, or worse, farming, leveling materials with some peasant enemies here. We're seeing worse performance, down to 31 FPS at a time and up to 42, so it's not that great. After 14 minutes of gameplay, we are now at 40 degrees top and 35 degrees bottom, which means this game is almost as heavy as Genshin Impact, but the phone is doing a great job in keeping that performance last. Interestingly, the inside of the phone is just at 41 degrees, so it's not as hot as Genshin, but battery wise we used up 6% or around 26% per hour. And finally, we got Honkai Star Rail. As always, we started off with a cool phone and maxed out setting at advanced 60 FPS. The game runs effortlessly at this maxed out setting, at least when I was trying to farm for leveling materials. It was smaller enemies, probably with less effects going on. That's why most of the fight was mostly above 55 FPS. In short, it was very smooth, but then we quickly move on to fighting the latest weekly boss Sunday in Penacony here, and then we see the frame rate go down to around 50 FPS, sometimes high 40 like 49, 48, and very rarely at 43 FPS, but that's for like once and then it goes back up. It's pretty understandable because there are lots of things happening on screen here in this boss fight, and we ended the boss fight with 37 degrees top and 30 degrees bottom, which is a pretty good exercise. And if you're wondering about simulated universe and exploration, things get better here as they're back to above 50 FPS, although in Penacony's golden hours, as always, there's so much NPCs here, so much lighting effects going on that the game straight up locks at 30 FPS. But basically, we ended the quick 11-minute session with almost 38 degrees top and 33 degrees bottom. So it could definitely hit that kind of Genshin and Wuthering Waves temperature over the long run, and that's backed up by the power consumption, which we use 5% battery, and if calculated, an hour would be 27%. So the same as Genshin and Wuthering Waves. Now we got the gist of what the Infinix GT20 Pro can do, but actually there are a few more features that makes this the best gaming phone for around 300 bucks. And first is a feature called Ultra Frame Rate, or game frame interpolation. Basically, there's a dedicated display chip inside that guesses and fills in frames, so the actual graphics GPU only generates 30 to 40 FPS, while the display chip fills the rest of the frames up to 120 FPS. This is not new tech, but last time I tried it in the Realme, it was not available in these games that I tried, but now Infinix made it available to most games you can find today, including PUBG Mobile, CoD Mobile, Genshin Impact, and Honkai Star Rail. Newer ones like Wuthering Waves and CoD Warzone is still not supported, which I hope will be coming in the future, but for very intensive games like Genshin on Star Rail, it really feels insane to play the game at buttery smooth 120 FPS most of the time. That's something that is not even available in the Android world. Now, the downside of using this feature is latency, as you can feel the extra millisecond of lag when panning the camera. Fortunately, fighting is not too affected, but this is another topic for another day. Let me know if you want to see a specific video for it. But we have to get back for the second feature, which is arguably the more crucial feature in a gaming phone, and that is bypass charging. Not just fully bypassing the battery, you can also customize whether to charge just 20% power or 50% power, or only if the phone drops below 30% battery, for example. What this means is the limited thermal capacity of your phone could be used for dissipating the heat from the processor, which is much more important than managing heat from the charging. I've struggled with Poco phones so much in the past with this, and really this feature is a must-have for a gaming phone. And speaking of longer gaming, Infinix actually has a gaming kit that supports you for that. This is a heat dissipating case here, which attaches magnetically to the included cooling fan or any other fan of your choice. And compared to this Black Shark cooler I had before, I like the included cooling fan here better because it's very quiet. And finally, you also get gaming triggers and finger sleeves, which upon further look actually is a generic parts for gaming. These don't cost much, but I appreciate it being included in the kit. It's got 2 buttons on each side and sounds pretty nice. I definitely use this if I don't have the controller already, but one more thing I wanted to mention is the included screen protector. This thing is very slippery, which is purpose built for gaming and speaks to how Infinix paid attention to the little details of what makes a gaming phone worth gaming on. And did I mention that the screen is finally flat? I love it. Okay, next up, I'm planning to work on a comparison between this phone, the Poco X6 Pro, and the F6 to see which one has the best real gaming performance. But yeah, subscribe for tons of exciting videos coming up soon. I'll try to put it here when it's up, and thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to use the affiliate links again to help me support the channel, and I'm Kenneth. I'll see you again in the next one. Bye.